Eva was a young, ambitious girl who had only recently graduated from university. Her plans for the future were filled with inspiration and determination, because she was always striving for new heights, trying to break out of the ordinary. The world around her beckoned her with a variety of possibilities, and every day was a chance for her to discover something new. Fate seemed to favor her. She had a boyfriend named John, with whom she had been in a relationship for several years. He seemed like a solid support, someone she could rely on, and Eve believed their connection would stand the test of time. But behind the beautiful picture they both painted for others was an anxiety that Eve felt more and more acutely every day. John was becoming more and more distant. His work was taking up more and more of his time, and the answers to questions about their future together were becoming less and less clear. Each week, she felt more and more that an invisible wall was growing between them, but she was afraid to realize the seriousness of the problem. One evening, deciding to surprise him, Eva went to John's favorite cafe, where they often spent time together. Stepping inside, her eyes immediately snatched him up at a corner table. However, her heart sank when she saw that he wasn't sitting alone. Next to him was another woman. John, who not so long ago had seemed loving and faithful to her, now sat laughing and holding the hand of another. The scene before her eyes instantly shot through her, filling her with a pain she didn't know how to deal with. Eve froze in place, unable to believe her eyes. It all seemed like a nightmare she was about to wake up from. Her legs stopped obeying, and she froze like a statue, watching the person she trusted most in the world betray her in the most brutal way possible. In that moment, the world she had so carefully built with John crumbled. All the dreams of a future together, of a family, of happiness were shattered into tiny shards. She couldn't bear the sight and walked out of the cafe without saying a word. Tears came to her eyes, but she desperately held them back, trying not to draw attention to herself. A storm of emotions raged inside, from anger to endless sadness. Outside, Eve froze for a few moments. Her mind was chaotic, her thoughts jumbled, and she didn't know what to do next. Her feet carried her through the streets of the city on their own until she found herself in front of the nearest bar. She didn't care where she was. The important thing was to get away from the place that had witnessed her personal tragedy. The bar was her only refuge from the pain, and she decided to go inside, hoping that something would help dull her emotions. Once inside, Eve took the farthest table in the corner where she couldn't be seen by outsiders. She hugged her shoulders as if trying to protect herself from this sudden, unbearable pain. Her heart was beating so hard it felt like it was about to break completely. Time seemed to slow down. Every second she felt the weight of the betrayal she was facing. Suddenly, to her surprise, a man approached the table. He was dressed in a strict business suit, but his manner was calm and unobtrusive. He introduced himself as Alex.
Excuse me, do you mind if I sit down?
His voice sounded soft but confident, catching her attention. Eve barely looked up to find a complete stranger in front of her. His eyes glowed with calmness, and there was an incomprehensible warmth in his gaze. But she still wasn't ready to talk to him. Too much had happened in the last few hours.
I don't need company,
She said coldly, turning away from him. Her voice sounded harsher than she intended, but she couldn't help it. All she wanted now was to be alone, to figure out how to deal with the storm of emotions.
I understand.
Alex answered, but he wasn't in a hurry to leave.
I just wanted to make sure you were okay.
Eva couldn't answer. She was too tired to object. Alex wasn't intrusive. Something about his presence made her feel safe, though she didn't realize it. He sat down across from her, still looking at her intently, but not asking any questions.
It's okay.
She finally said, but her voice trembled. Tears came to her throat again, and she tried to hold them back so that she wouldn't cry in front of the stranger. Alex realized that it was better for her not to be alone in this state. Seeing her confusion, he offered to walk her home. At first, she refused, but after a while, exhausted by doubts and emotions, Eva agreed. They walked in silence, and Alex didn't try to start a conversation, realizing that she needed time to come to her senses. When they finally approached her house, their meeting suddenly moved to a new level. The moment when John appeared in front of them, John, upon seeing Eve, changed in an instant. His face contorted with rage, and his eyes shone with hatred. He didn't notice Alex. and without waiting for an explanation, he rushed to Eve with accusations.
What are you doing to him?
He shouted, his voice sounding like he was ready to tear her apart. In an instant, his hand came up and he struck her across the face. The blow was sharp and sudden, like lightning piercing the sky. Eva recoiled in horror, falling to the cold asphalt. She held her cheek, where a deep scratch appeared. Alex, who witnessed this horror, was in shock. He could not believe that someone was capable of treating a woman so cruelly. Quickly coming to his senses, he stood between Eva and John, his body becoming a barrier, and his face expressing determination and defense. "Go away before it's too late," he said. His voice was quiet, but he could hear the threat in it. John, intending to reply something, felt a stirring rise in his chest. He was unprepared for such a challenge. Seeing Alex's determined look, he stepped back, casting a baleful glance in Eve's direction before disappearing into the darkness. Eva sat on the ground, shocked at what was happening, not realizing how things could have changed so quickly. Alex crouched down next to her, trying to show support. "Let me help you." His voice became soft and full of care, as if he was trying to cover her from pain. Eva wanted to refuse again, but at this moment she wanted so much to have someone by her side, to have someone to show her attention and care in this horrible world. "Okay," she whispered, her voice sounding almost inaudible, but in its intonation she could hear fatigue and fear. Alex picked her up and offered to take her to his house to have her wound treated. Although she was unsure and hesitant, Eva agreed, realizing it was the only way to get away from this place, full of memories of betrayal. When they arrived at Alexi's place, he pulled out a first aid kit and carefully began to treat her cheek, being careful not to cause unnecessary pain. Each of his movements was careful, as if he was afraid of causing her more suffering. As they talked, Eve told him about John's betrayal, about how their relationship had fallen apart in an instant. Alex listened to her with attention, without interrupting. Every word she said echoed in his heart, and with every breath she took, he realized how strong she was, despite all the pain she was going through. "You know, I thought I'd found someone I could spend my life with," she said, bitterness in her voice. "I always dreamed of having a family and that we'd be okay. But now..." "You are stronger than you think," Alex interrupted her. His voice sounded confident. "All trials make us stronger." At that moment, the door of the apartment opened and Christina came in, a girl who knew Alex from his studies. She was the daughter of a wealthy businessman and had always tried to get involved with Alex for his position. When she saw them together, she made a jealous scene, not letting Eva say a word. "What are you doing here? Alex!" she shouted, her voice sounding like a thunderclap. Eva, dumbfounded by what was happening, simply stood up and walked out without waiting for an explanation. She couldn't get over this scene, which only increased her feelings of loneliness and betrayal. Alex tried to stop her, but Christina blocked his path. Their eyes met, and he saw the uncertainty in her. That night, he asked his assistant to look into the girl, who turned out to be Eva, and find out what really happened to her. The next morning, Alex found out that her name was Eva, and that she had recently graduated from university. She worked in a small cafe near his office, but she hadn't been there lately. He felt the need to help her, because after seeing her suffering, he couldn't just leave everything to chance. For several days in a row, he stopped by the cafe, hoping to meet her. His thoughts were occupied only with Eva. Finally, on the fourth day, she showed up. But, as it turned out, not to work, she had an argument with her boss. She missed several shifts and was fired right on the spot. Alex, seeing this unpleasant moment, came up to her, determined to support her in a difficult moment. "Eva, wait. Listen to me," he said softly, trying to gain her trust. She hesitated, but finally agreed to talk. They went outside, and Alex explained the whole situation with Christina, saying that she was not his girlfriend at all, but just an old acquaintance. Eva gradually softened, though she was still wary. "I realize that this is not the best time, but I have a proposal," Alex said, noticing her hesitation. "I would like to offer you a job in my company." "But why?" she asked in surprise, feeling distrustful. Because I think you are a talented and smart girl, and I don't like the way you have been treated, Alex answered. His voice was sincere. It's not an obligation. It's just an opportunity. Eva hesitated for a long time, but finally agreed. She realized that she had nothing to lose, and this offer seemed like a chance to change her life. As she started working in Alex's company, she gradually got to know him from a different side. Alex turned out to be not only a successful businessman, but also a kind, attentive man. He did not try to impose himself, but his care and attentiveness could not leave Eve indifferent. Over time, her heart began to open to him. Several months passed, during which Eva got used to her new job. Alex gave her a position as an assistant, and they often spent time together discussing projects. Every day, she realized more and more how versatile and generous Alex was. Alex, and his care and attention to detail, only made her trust stronger. Though she still tried to keep her distance, her heart began to melt under his sincere actions. One Friday night, after a long day at work, Alex offered Eva a ride home. They sat in the car, and Eva, feeling comfortable and safe, opened up for the first time in a long time. She told him about her childhood, about how she had always dreamed of becoming a designer, but because of financial problems, she was forced to take a job as a waitress after graduation. Alex listened to her attentively, not interrupting her. He saw in front of him not just a beautiful girl, but a person with dreams and desires which she hid because of past disappointments. His heart grew stronger and stronger as he wanted to be there for her and help her. Soon their conversations became more personal, and Alex felt that their bond was getting stronger. One day, he invited Eva to dinner, and although she hesitated, she finally agreed. That night, over a delicious dinner and candlelight, they talked about everything in the world, as if forgetting all their past anxieties. After dinner, Alex drove Eva home, but when she was about to get out of the car, he asked her quietly, "Eva, can I see you again? Not as a colleague, but as a woman I care about?" Eva looked at him, feeling her heart suddenly beat faster. She hadn't expected such words, but she realized that she cared about Alex too. She smiled shyly. "Yes, I think so,"